5 minutes.
It was a quick 5 minutes. All right.
From there until I asked you. There's going to be a monetary bonus in it for you.
I'd like to call our July 19th, 2018 City Council meeting to order. And we are going to have an opening, the prayer and pledge given by Councilmember Jake Karn.
Our Father in heaven, we bow our heads in humility before Thee and in great awe of the beauty of this world, of the miracle of creation, the fact that we can be here in this modern age with so many advantages and so many technological advances that are so amazing. But we also know that these create challenges, and as we plan for the future of this community, we ask that Thy Spirit may be with us, that we may make wise decisions and choices, and that we may listen to the people of Kaysville and engage with them, that we can better understand what the best solutions will be to the problems we face for us and for future generations. And we say these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Will you please arise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. This is not on the agenda, but I have a presentation to make. This is Councilmember Hansen's last council meeting, and we just wanted to say thank you. Can we have you come forward? The front. I was afraid if I put this on the agenda, you wouldn't come. Anyway, but in case you haven't heard, Councilmember Hansen has received a wonderful opportunity to be an academic fellow with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and as such, he has had to resign. But we wanted to say thank you so much for the time that you have spent. And he did the hard part, which is the running, and then as soon as he got really into a groove, then another opportunity came up. But we wanted to say thank you for being willing to step up and serve your community. So thank you. And the hazing will be later. All right. Now we are going to have a report from our Chief Paul Erickson with the Fire Department.
Mayor, Council, Kaysville residents, I appreciate your opportunity to speak today. I just want to give you a quick report on the fire department and just a little bit of a 5-year plan in my thinking. First off, I'd really like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to hire 3 more firefighters. We do our testing on Saturday. It was actually a great turnout. I just talked to the chief at South Davis Metro today. They had 30 applicants for 10 positions. We had 28 applicants for 3 positions. People are excited to come to Kaysville. They're excited what you are doing and what we are doing. So I do appreciate that. Thank you. First off, I'd like to go over just a little bit of station and staffing because I don't think people understand how we're staffed. I'd like to go over vehicles training, a little bit on fire prevention, how many inspections we do a year, safety and health, responses, 5-year plan, and then I threw in a little success framework. We didn't forget about it. There's a few benchmarks that we are hitting and a few more we need to hit. So we run out of one fire station. Most of you know that. Station 62, or excuse me, Station 61. That was a slip, I think, somewhere. We have 7 full-timers, counting myself at this time. We are getting ready to have 10. Like I said, we're testing on Saturday. And 22 part-timers. Those numbers look good, but we only run 4 on duty 24/7. So we run 2 on the ambulance, 2 on the engine. If we get a structural call, all 4 will jump on that engine. And of course, callbacks and mutual aid support from Farmington, South Davis Metro, and Layton. We have 2 command vehicles, 2 engines, 3 ambulance, 2 brush trucks, an aerial, and a heavy rescue, all housed at Station 61 on Main. Our annual training plan, 80 plus firefighter specific topics, 36 or so medical topics, and they have to achieve that 108 hours to get their continuing education training. They're all certified to advanced EMTs. We have joint training with Farmington and Layton and Hill Air Force Base, at this time. And it works out pretty good, whether it's live fire training with them, whether it's bailout training and safety survival training. So we do quite well with that. Fire prevention. So if we put one individual working 40 hours a day, 40 hours a week for 6 straight months, they would get all of our inspections complete. So you see the inspection rate there, how many are commercial, how many are home, station tours, special events that we are, and that's still with only 4 people and myself at the station. Here's what we focus in on safety and health. We have monthly safety meetings. We are getting ready in September to do annual physical exams to make sure our firefighters are physically fit. And then we'll run a physically fit exam in October to make sure they're fit. We go over near miss reportings, what's happened in the nation as far as close calls. We do after action reports for anything significant. For instance, we just had a newborn with cardiac arrest last week, and we did an after action report because there's always lesson learned from something. That did go well, and to my knowledge to this date, the newborn is still alive, so it's a good day. And then every year in June, there's a safety stand down. Here's been our responses since 2014. You can see the increase as we went, and that number for 2018 is actually through 30 June, so that's pretty accurate actually. We're on course to be right on about that 1678 mark, so we are pretty busy. Here's our areas that we cover. I call them the fire response districts, so we have 12 of them, and then 3 mutual aid areas that we cover. Here's a heat map that our wonderful Jordan did in our GIS area. As you can see, the hot spot there, that's Mutton Hollow. We are trying to clean up that. Mayor, I've had a conversation with you about that. 120-something calls a year to that place, and most of them are false calls, so we're working on that. We're moving a smoke detector and replacing it with a heat detector. It'll actually solve a lot of problems. But as you can see, that west side's growing pretty good. Here's a 5-year plan in a nutshell on one slide. In the next 5 years, hiring 21 more firefighters full-time, of 9 of which will be paramedics. You can see captains there, engineers, and firefighters. There's the breakdown as far as fiscal year. The goal is to have 6 full-timers at Station 61, 4 on an engine full-time, and 2 on that ambulance. New station at Fruit Heights, based on numbers, we can't make it there in a quality time. Fruit Heights has raised since 2014, they've increased 300% their call volume going to Fruit Heights. So that's pretty big. New station on the west side, that's how we would staff the west side, the same way we staff here. And then a paramedic service. And let me touch on that just a little bit. When you talk about a paramedic service, 68% of our calls are medical. So you look at that 1678 and you go, wow, 68%. So round it to 70 for easy math. So approximately 1,200 of our calls are medical. Out of those 1,200 calls, almost half of those, so almost 600, require a paramedic. We should be providing a paramedic service to our community. That's the breakdown of part-timers as far as very hard sometimes to fill. They have other commitments and primary jobs. I understand that. I do get that. And one thing that I put down on the bottom there is the part-time employees are conditioned at their full-time job. Yes, we do get a lot of from Layton full-time or Farmington full-time or surrounding cities, but they do things a little bit different. And when you're conditioned to do it at that full-time job and you come on over to us, it makes you hesitate a little bit and think. So it is a safety concern for us. And then part-timers, as we're running into with 2 of them who have carried us these past couple months, 1,508 hours is the annual requirement. And we got 2 of them that will pretty much done be working in September. So it makes it tough. Station 62 on the west side, it's based on statistical data. Based on our website, the 2 or 3% growth on the west side, which may be increased now, I do not know. I'm just taking it off our website. And the slow response times, 48% total of that whole west area. What that means is 4 times out of 10 or 4.8 out of 10 times when you're having that heart attack or your house is on fire, we'll be there on time. Otherwise, we'll be elsewhere. And then our overlap rate is very important. What that means is we're on another call and we get a second call. So that's huge as well. That number will grow. As I stated earlier, 300% increase since 2014 in Fruit Heights. They get about 11 calls a month when you average it all out. They also, that fire response district has the majority of the fires, believe it or not. Small or big, but they have a majority of them in our districts. 68 responses, as I went over. Startup cost, we already have most everything equipment-wise, and so it would be a $6,000 fee basically to start up, buy some suction equipment, buy a little bit more equipment. But the paramedics, hiring paramedics obviously is going to be more than $6,000. And DCO response times or Davis County Sheriffs, and that's not to knock anybody, it's just reality. They're all over the county. It's a little hard for them to get here in a timely manner. Successful framework. Our certifications. Are you certified to a minimum level that we need at Kaysville Fire? That's actually wrong. We're not at 100%. I just have found out an individual that doesn't have a certification. He's working on it right now, and we can get that for him here shortly. So there's one of those. PPE inspections, which is important to make sure our gear is good to go fight that fire, is 100%. Our training benchmark, we stumbled a little bit at the beginning of the year, starting in January. We got better in April, but we're at 81% right now with the benchmark meeting 80%. Response times, 90% is the benchmark to the standard. 90% is where you need to be. We're at 68% with our entire area. That counts Fruit Heights, West Side, all 12 of our areas, and the mutual aid as well. Is there any questions? Wow.
Well, Councilmember Barber.
That's great. Thank you.
I had to think. I was in the moment. My first question I had that I wrote down on the overlap, is it because we have full-time from other cities that come and work for us part-time?
No, that has nothing to do with it. What I mean by overlap, and I'm sorry if I didn't explain that clearly, is we're out on a call. We have a fire on the west side. Nobody's in the station. We get a medical call in Kaysville that's ours. That's an overlap.
Okay.
We get 2 calls at the same time or 3. Okay. So then Layton will cover us or Farmington will come up.
Councilmember Garn.
Yes, sir.
So when you say launch a paramedic service, I know from personal experience, a family member who, actually you were there very quickly, but there was paramedics. So I think now we have part-time. Is it true that there are some part-timers that have their paramedic certification, and that's why in the past they've been able to respond? Or
I think it's always been like that, to be honest with you, sir. We actually have full-timers that are certified paramedics. But
okay.
We're not a paramedic agency to be able to take lead on that. And that's the whole point of that.
Oh, I see the distinction now. So
Yeah.
you've got people, but you get the designation, I guess, as a...
Exactly right.
Okay.
You don't have the shirt.
Okay.
We don't have the
Councilmember
paramedic
Adams.
license, do we?
No, we do not. That's what I was just saying.
Yeah, there's an actual license that we
Yep.
do not hold.
Absolutely.
The county holds it, correct?
Actually, that fee is it's $850 to apply for our paramedic license. And obviously, it has to get approved and go through more than, it's not that easy, but you are correct.
Councilmember Hanson.
Just in the long term, what about costs for these things? Two-part question, additional costs for adding the additional staffing. Second, and then how does Fruit Heights, don't they compensate us a certain percentage?
Yeah, I don't know how the compensation works or the exact dollars, but I know they're on the last year of our 3-year agreement, so they do.
Thank you.
And I'm not saying that Fruit Heights we need to pay for some in Fruit Heights. That's not my point. I'm just pointing out the need. We have a deficiency, and that's all I'm pointing out. And I have discussed it with city council, or not city council, excuse me, but city manager Brandon Green at Fruit Heights. I actually briefed their council on the 7th of August.
And then the second part of that question was just additional cost. Do you have an estimate on that? And it's
You bet. Three new firefighters would cost you about $180,000 a year. And that's firefighters. You know, you get the engineers and it's more. You pump that up a little bit more. And, of course, captains. And then if you have a firefighter that's a paramedic, you want to pay them a little bit more than a firefighter. So there's always that juggling.
Councilmember Garn.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up on Councilmember Hanson's question, you'd also, of course, with the 2 new stations, one in Fruit Heights, I imagine they'd be smaller substations, but you've still got building construction costs and maintenance, and then
Absolutely.
you got more equipment as well. So
We have pretty much the equipment that can house in that area. Matter of fact, we're going to need a new ambulance here in about 3 years. 63 is on its last leg. So
you could distribute some of the equipment from the existing station to the...
correct.
Okay.
And that would be the plan with a station on the west side right now with the existing. We'd still have a reserve engine here with a new build on a new engine. So one would go there and one here, and with 3 ambulances, we're sitting pretty decent.
comment.
Councilmember Page.
Yeah, hey, you know, one of the advantages I think of having a part-time is when we do rotate into a full-time position, it's not like hiring all brand-new people. I mean, if you eliminate that part-timer and have a full-timer, you know, of course, the pay's going to go up, but it's not like putting on a brand-new position. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, that is correct, until you're done with that. And part-timers are so valuable to us anyway because we create our own bullpen. Matter of fact, we're testing 17 people. We sifted that 28 down to 17, and 8 of them are our own folks.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah, it's a great deal. They want to stay here. They understand what we bring to the table, so it's a great thing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barber.
All right, my question's twofold. First of all, how can we support you and plan for this future? How can we be aware strategically, you know, putting maybe new fire stations on our plan, look long-term on the budgetary, so financially plan. And then second, for both the council and the community, how can we continue to support and foster a great relationship with our fire department and encourage how much we appreciate them and encourage people to come and keep applying and just keep fostering you guys?
I know this may sound, you know, kind of like I don't have an answer, but keep doing what you're doing. I mean, really, and it's not about yes votes. That's not the thing. It's what's financially being responsible to our community. And I'm telling you from emergency services standpoint, what we need in our community, not use, it's not a nicety, and then it would be up to you to juggle that between roads and other departments, and you know, I got that.
Are there really
Councilmember Adams.
further discussions on a fire district?
I was waiting for you.
I saw you waiting.
I was waiting for you. You know, I have had a little bit with our own city manager. It came up with Mr. Green at Fruit Heights. So the discussion is out there. I was actually going to put it in here, but not having a lot of data and making it too long, I decided to leave it out. But I can count on you to
Pull it out.
Yeah.
That's our job, sir.
No, I got you. So, yeah, but just a little bit of talks, nothing on paper, nothing formal, not going into anybody about it, but I think it is a talk.
Yeah, with being slated with millions of dollars of expenses, I don't think we saw a grand total of this 5-year plan, what it will cost.
Sure.
But are there ways to create a district like our neighbors have done to maybe remedy some of those costs?
Absolutely.
Spread them out a little broader.
And just because Kaysville may need a station on the west side, and you go to a district, doesn't mean that Kaysville's still not going to pay for a station on the west side. It goes with the territory. And a district, don't go into it thinking that a district is going to save you money. However, it may in some areas. So I totally agree. When you have 3 cities supporting your long-range plan, that's big.
Well, the beauty that I see is trying to avoid overlapping and doubling down on services.
You bet.
There's an argument out there that the county provides some of these services already. Now, the counter argument to that could be, well, your time getting there is not where we want it to be. Okay, but the taxpayer is not only paying at the county level, they're also paying at the city level. So could a district, the theory behind a district would be, could we help to avoid some of that overlapping cost? You talk about overlaps that we have internal to Kaysville, but could a district help avoid overlap of infrastructure?
Sure.
Where the real cost lies.
Sure.
That's my concern. And could that be in conjunction with the county and with all the resources we already have, and making sure that they are spread across a geographical region that makes sense, instead of having stations so close to each other. I've heard it told before. We all get a case of the I want it's. I just would like to see that we make sure that at the end of the day, the taxpayer's not paying 2 or 3 fold.
Well, actually, you bring up a good point, and I think we do our due diligence right now. Me getting with Chief Ward at Layton, and he's saying, hey, Paul, I'm going to move that station there. Don't put this over here. Look a little bit further to the south. I think we do that now. If you look at your heat map, what the importance of that is where are your trends? Where are your trends? And then that's the smartest place to put the station. And then you go out from there. So it's not necessarily, wow, you look on a map and you're a triangle now. That's perfect. You have correct distance and everywhere. Well, that doesn't make sense. It makes sense of where your need is. So you should do that all the time. And really, unofficially, we're running as a district anyway because we have mutual aid agreements. So
Yeah, but
we're all coming in.
You've got, what I see is you have the element of politics involved.
Oh, yeah.
You've got 3 different city councils
Sure.
to deal with in that realm. And at any rate, that's my...
But you still do as a district. Jeff still deals with it at South Davis Metro.
That's right.
He's got a council there, and he's got 5 councils that he has to deal with, and 5 mayors, and a commissioner. It's the same thing.
Hey, if you're against it, just...
No, actually, I'm
Shout
not.
it out.
No, I'm actually not. I'm just explaining that there are 2 sides, and you have a good point.
Thank you, Chief. I think, regardless if we decide to eventually go to a district, and those discussions are going to be happening, if we decide to go for a district, we still need to be taking care of our people now. When you look at the hierarchy of needs, right, I think that life safety is the most important thing that we do as a community. Then under that, infrastructure, and on from there. But it is the most important that we make sure that we are able to meet the needs of our community to keep them safe. So we need to have. We can't freeze everything until we get down the road 5 years and then make a decision. We need to be planning to be able to take care of our people now. So, also, I did want to say thank you so much to our firefighters for their participation in helping. It was all hands on deck for 4th of July. Thank you to everybody who helped with that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember Garn.
It's kind of a brief comment, question combination, I guess. I was thinking of, okay, other overlap of services, because I really agree with this idea that Councilmember Adams is espousing, which is to the extent that we can cooperate, and we do that already through certain interlocal agreements, but to the extent that we can make that even better, great, let's go for it. The only thing is, I was thinking of the library, so we have a library in Kaysville that's now run by the county, so I guess it's paid for with county revenues largely. Kaysville perhaps participates that in a way, but it's in Kaysville so that it's close to the people. And I think that's the time until we figure out a way to be like Star Trek and beam me up, Scotty. There's time and distance. And so if the county or the other cities like you, and I think you explained this part very well, so I don't want to go over that, but if you want to improve response times, we're not hitting the benchmarks, then you have to have something closer because it takes time to get there. Now, whether that's county or whether Farmington's close enough on their station on the very south side, or Layton on the north side of Kaysville, great, let's cooperate on that. But you still need, I'm not aware of where those stations are, but that's the point you're making, right? I mean, you still
Yes,
have
sir.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I just want to make everybody aware, if you are here to make public comments were inadvertently left off our agenda, but they will be right after work items. And if you would like to sign up to participate in public comment, there is a sheet out in the hallway to sign up for that. All right. We'll move on to our consent agenda. Would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Mayor, the declaration of conflicts. is
Oh,
on there
thank
just
you.
first.
I just jumped right over. Number 3, any conflicts of interest? All right. No. Yes, sir.
I've got a friendship with, some individuals on the agenda. That's about it.
Okay. But that you don't feel that's going to compromise your vote?
No. But
Okay.
Covering
But thank
base, we know how this rolls.
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
would also say same thing. Friendships and close where I live.
Okay.
One of the items.
All right. Thank you, both. All right. So then consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything off the consent to discuss? Councilmember Adams.
I'd like more information on B and C.
Okay. All right. Would anybody like to move the consent agenda minus B and C?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Hanson and seconded by Councilmember Barber. Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Consent.
Oh, aye.
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 All right, thank you. Let's go to B, vacuum truck purchase. All right, Councilmember Adams.
Do we have a report? This is a $100,000 purchase. Do we have a report of how often we're going to use it? Do we have a report of how often we've rented one historically or borrowed it from the other department? We already have a Vector truck. And there's also a Vector trailer currently sitting in the yard, the Public Works yard, that I haven't seen move in years. So do we have answers for all that? It's a $100,000 purchase. I think it merits a little bit of explanation.
Mayor, I don't have answers for any of those things beyond what's been put in the packet, and just that it was budgeted for in the budget that was adopted here on July 1st. But other than that, I don't have any information.
Well, and I obviously had major concerns with the budget, and unfortunately was in Boise, Idaho during that meeting. So just because something is budgeted, the budget is vast. But I get your point. I get the point. but I think we still can get some clarification, and I think we still have the authority to say, no, let's forego that. Let's save that and put it towards roads or put it here or there or wherever. So,
Mayor,
Councilmember Hanson.
do you have that agreement that was in our packet for the, I don't know if it's a vacuum truck or the mini excavator? One of the agreements had it down as a lease. At least in the packet, it was that way.
I think it's on the next one.
Is it on the excavator?
I'm pretty, yeah.
Okay. All right. Any?
Yep, I'm sorry, I don't have much information beyond
That,
beyond what was put in there.
yeah, that's one I wanted clarified. I just saw on there, and that was just odd to me. Again, it might, like always, it's probably just a misfilled out invoice or whatever. Because, it's a purchase listed, but it was listed as a lease in the document.
Okay. I'll look at it and see if I can figure it out, but I probably can't.
But that's probably for C. How about B?
I think,
Councilmember
too, the
Evans.
justification for the purchase that we've been given to vacuum out a water meter barrel that's full of water. I mean, an $800 1-inch Honda, pump does that very sufficiently versus $100,000. I've been around this equipment, a lot in my lifetime. And then, saying that it has a valve exerciser with it, I understand what that is. But, we also have staff that can be valve exercisers, too. So, you're basically paying a guy to sit there and watch a machine turn a valve off and on to exercise it annually so that, the calcium deposits and all that build up in there, you just keep that broken down. So we're, what is this? How much mechanizing are we doing? We just spent, $1.5 million or greater on automated water meters, and are we just automating everything now? So I think another look could be taken at that. I do recall a few years back, Chief Oberg actually gave up a couple of police cars so that another department could take something that was a greater need in the community. So I think we have that power to ebb and flow, and I think it merits discussion.
Councilmember Adams, did you have an opportunity to talk to Josh Belknap about this?
No, I prefer to do my discussions open here in council.
Okay. Well,
That way there's
absolutely.
there's an avoidance
And
of-
we have, council members, if ever you have a question that comes up to your mind, please take the opportunity to talk to our staff members, because they are more than willing to spend the time to explain it to you. But if you would like, we can table this until you have that chance to talk to the Public Works Director.
Oh, I prefer, I prefer to be open about it, and transparency over efficiency, as David Church always says. I think we have the time to do it. I think my questions are on record. Council can take them into consideration. The department head can provide a response. I think that would be fabulous. But we're not doing our duty if we don't ask our questions. And I really feel like, unless you're saying, are we breaking rules by asking questions here?
Absolutely
Is that
not.
against your
But I do
protocol?
believe we had this discussion in our budget hearing, so it's not like this is the first time that we've seen it. And he did answer our questions at that time. So, but it is good that you are on record saying that you feel that this is unnecessary.
I don't recall talking in detail about a vector. I was
Okay,
there.
that's all right.
I would
Okay.
debate you on that point. If you could provide that link, I'll gladly retract my debate.
Anyway, I am looking for a motion for B.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the vac trailer for $92,500.
Look for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Garn and seconded by Councilmember Page. Councilmember Page?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Just a point of order.
Yes.
Before, when it moves from the consent item, it becomes an action item. Shouldn't there be discussion before we take, or comments period before we take a vote? Or am I wrong on that?
No, you are not
It's-
wrong.
It's moved, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
After it's been moved and
This is
seconded.
just the motion.
Then I should have asked for comments. You're right.
Can I make a comment before
Please.
I vote? I don't know if, just that I too would like more information on this. As all things, I hope this is relevant. I really like the acceptance of the USU Botanical Center. They did a great job. Here's our 4 bids. This is why we took this one. On a large purchase like this, I always like to see, this is the, we went to these vendors. It might be the only vendor, but that's where I'm hesitant on this one, just to find out more information in that regard. Not that I'm against the vac truck, but yeah, was it put out? I don't even know if that's put out the bid, but did we go to appropriate vendor? Is that the normal price? Things like that. So just want to make that
Mayor?
comment.
This particular one for the vac trailer was what's called GSA pricing, so it's like state bid, so it's on the state contract pricing. So that's where the bid came from. So in theory, the state contract bids are already pre-negotiated purchase prices, so we take advantage of that state contract that the state has. So in our procurement policy, it talks about getting a state bid price in lieu of bids, although we try to do both at almost every time.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I do have a comment as well.
Yes.
Okay, if we can. I've hesitated to say too much technically about this because I don't know exactly all of the details, probably not to the level that people are requesting, but I did talk to Public Works about this. We actually went and saw their current vac truck and heard about the issues that it was having and the need to for a replacement. One question I did not ask, though, is if the surplus from the existing truck would pay into that.
That is familiar. Right.
I remember asking that
You
question. And so we did talk to them quite a bit about it and heard how much this is used almost continually. So to me, that was what I felt was necessary. But I'm not positive about the surplus of the old one and if that would go towards this.
We usually would sell the other price, so we would buy this one outright,
Yeah.
sell that, and so you could say that it's offsetting it, but
Somewhat.
yeah, it'd still be the purchase.
Can we
price
clarify
same.
for the people, is this a trailer or a truck?
It's
Go ahead, Councilmember.
I'm very technical on this. It's like a truck. It's an actual truck. It's not just on the trailer, and it has the long extender, the elephant nose that they refer to it. It's because I'm very technical with this.
That's
But,
the technical name.
Yes,
the
but anyway,
elephant nose.
it's a
All right.
full, huge vac truck, and that they tell about how they are able to extract water not just from hydrants, but anytime there's a leak or a flood, they can get it cleared out extremely fast because of this truck, and the current one that we had basically was not working at all anymore.
Okay.
If I understand.
All right. Councilmember Adams, anything further?
I recall reading in the packet literature that talked about they didn't want to keep borrowing the Vector truck from the stormwater department, and this is the water department buying a $100,000 Vector trailer. Vector trucks are $200,000 to $450,000. There's no way this is a truck.
Okay.
It says right there, vac trailer purchase. We're not even
Okay.
clear
We're
on
not
what we're
pros.
buying. It's a $100,000 purchase, guys. It's a trailer.
So-
All right, but
Yeah.
We had voted
Here-
through.
all right, and you've voted, and Councilmember Hanson, we just need your vote.
Nay.
Okay, the motion passes 3-2. Okay, now let's talk about the mini excavator purchase. Councilmember Adams.
How many hours are on the current excavator that we have?
I have no idea.
We're stepping up maybe 1,500. I'm shooting from the hip here, but we're stepping up maybe a metric ton in size, which is not much significant at all for an excavator. Going from a 75 to an 85, that's really not a big deal. So I don't really see why that's a great need. It's a 2013 John Deere excavator. I'd like to know how many hours are on it before we spend another $60,000 again tonight. And I think that education of that would help. Excavators are designed to have a good 20, 30-year run. I'd like to have a little bit more of the why, especially in a time where we just looked at a 5-year plan that probably has a $5 million or greater price tag to it. You guys are looking at, plans of the old library that's going to have millions of dollars of price tag hitched to it, not to mention the roads. At what point do we really buckle down on some things and say we don't need that, we can forgo that?
Okay. All right, so do you have a motion?
Yeah, I would motion that we table the mini excavator purchase until we have a greater understanding of the condition of the existing one, how many hours are on it, maybe a market analysis of what it's worth in the private world, and those kind of things. And to James, Councilmember Hanson's point, I didn't see any bids on this either. I just saw a price from John Deere, and that's it. So I would like to see some competitive bidding, and not competitive bidding is great when it comes to the dollar value on one hand. On the other, it's great when a public entity competitively bids something openly. It shares that to the community. We have plenty of people who would just like an opportunity to bid. It actually invites inclusion in a community. So for those reasons, I'd like to see that also.
Okay, so Councilmember Adams has moved to table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Adams, seconded by Councilmember Hanson. Comments? Councilmember Garn.
This has been in the budget since when? Maybe February? Or July? And now we're asking questions about why we need an excavator? I think we've been there, done that. It's in the budget. We're not going into debt to buy it. It's needed. My vote is let's get it done. Table because, I won't say what I really think, but because council members are not doing their jobs in the last 5 months.
Is that appropriate, Mayor?
All right.
Point of order.
Council, any other comments about this before we vote?
Excuse me, Mayor. You have to
You
honor
have-
the point of order.
You have not been recognized, and I do not have to notice your point of order. I checked with David Church. I'm not taking points of order at this time.
The
So, do we
personal jab
have
was acceptable.
quiet?
That was acceptable.
I will now call for a vote on tabling this item. Councilmember Garn.
Aye.
Aye. It's your own motion. Are you going to support your own motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the motion, can I take my motion back?
Let's start again. Okay, the motion on the table is to table this item. Councilmember Garn.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, motion passes 3-2.
Mayor, can I
Yes.
get clarification? So
Sir.
are you asking this to be an action item next time, and you want Josh to come and talk about it and answer those questions?
That sounds good. Let's do that. Thank you. All right, we are going to go to our action items. Hold on. Thank you for getting me the sign-up sheets. Appreciate that. Okay. All right. We're going to item 5A, rezone of 3.3 acres of property at 1020 and 1034 West Smith Lane from A1 light agricultural to R1 LD single family low density zoning district. Thank you, Andy.
Property's highlighted on the map here. It's on Smith Lane across from the junior high and elementary school. If you recall, recently we've had development just to the east of it. It was also developed in the R1 LD zone. Same developer has now acquired the properties to the west or has them under contract, requesting to zone it to the R1 LD zone. You can see the zoning in the area. It's currently A1. They requested the R1 LD zone. Their intent is to put a small subdivision in there. This is a concept plan. They're be reviewed at preliminary plat shortly. Planning Commission reviewed this request and unanimously recommended approval.
Okay, thank you. We don't have anybody signed up to comment on this, so I will take questions from council. Any questions from council on this? Okay. Seeing no questions, I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make it.
Councilmember Barber.
Thank you. I'll make a motion that we approve the rezone of 3.3 acres on Smith Lane.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Barber, seconded by Councilmember Page. Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes unanimously. Going on to B, adoption of a resolution authorizing users to access the Utah State Treasurer's Public Investment Fund accounts. Please.
The state treasurer has developed a new online platform, and one of the requirements of that is that we pass a resolution authorizing users to be able to create accounts, make changes to that. You have a resolution there in your packet. I hope you've looked at it. Authorizes myself, Cami Moss, and Dean Story to be able to make those changes through the Public Treasurer's Investment Fund. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer those.
Okay. I do not have anybody signed up to speak to this item. So questions from council? Anyone? Okay. Councilmember Hanson.
So Shane, this is just so an individual can access their own account, right?
This is for the staff to access the city's account.
To access the city's account.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
So not everybody can, and we would either call up or tap in and have to be an authorized user to make changes.
Okay, sorry, I was deep in thought. I didn't mean to have you repeat things.
All right. Councilmember Barber.
Shane, how is it currently done right now? It sounds like they just changed the access permissions.
Yes, it's almost just a more web-based portal as opposed to what they're doing before, where we could call up and you could even do it in writing before, which probably won't be able to do anymore.
That's what it seemed like.
All right. I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll move that we adopt a resolution authorizing users to access Utah State Treasurer's Public Investment Fund accounts.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Hanson, seconded by Councilmember Garn. Any comments? None. Okay, we'll go to a vote. Councilmember Adams.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes 4-1. All right. Service line warranty program agreement.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we discussed this at the last meeting in a work session. This is that insurance program that insures privately owned water lines on the resident or service side of the meter. We have a agreement there in your packet if you've been able to look at that. I think one thing we're looking for direction on is part of this program allows the city to take a small I think it's 50 cents per person, and we can keep that in city coffers. We can put that aside for those that maybe have a hard time paying their bill. We can probably use it for about anything. Or we can just say, we're just going to pass that cost on to the residents. So if you are interested in doing this program, we'd like some direction on that. I think the agreement you have in front of you is that we would just pass that cost, that savings on to the resident. So if you have any other questions about that, I think Dennis Line was here last time and talked through that program.
All right. I don't have anybody signed up to speak to this from the public. Any questions from council?
I do have a question.
Councilmember Barber. Yes.
How did you know?
Your look.
My initial thought was also to just pass that savings on to the resident, but I did ask around a little bit. I wondered about, and you may not know this, but how much we have right now. The sentiment I got was that we do have reserves right now for people that can't afford their bills, that we do have a program through the city that's available, and that would we be adding to that as a possibility? Is there one available right now?
I'm actually not aware of any program we have that does that. I mean, we work with people a great deal, and we make accommodations for making payments and things like that, but I'm not aware of any actual money that we use for that kind of thing. If it's okay, I could address one other thing is Orem and Clearfield are both participants in this program. And I contacted them, and I think that they both just pass that off onto their residents, that savings. Mm-hmm. They've both been very happy with the program. They've also, one thing they mentioned that I hadn't really thought too much about is that many times residents don't know that they have water lines that are even their responsibility at all. So it was kind of, even though a lot of people didn't, some participate and others don't, but almost, at least if you get that mailer, you can say, oh, I have a responsibility
the awareness
here.
of it now.
So
I think my comment is I would still recommend passing that savings on, especially because I don't think it'll add up to a huge number, but I think it would be an interesting thing to look at in the city, because people I talked to were willing to donate if there was a need. So I think it'd be a great thing for us to put together as a completely separate item.
And maybe one other comment is around Christmas time, we do get a lot of very generous people that come in and say, I'd like to pay, could you just put this $100 on someone's bill? That happens quite a bit. So, but I don't think that accumulates. We just kind of pay it and let it go.
We'll look into it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good question. Any other questions at this time about this? Yes, Councilmember Hanson.
I haven't thought about this in a month. Today, either of the other cities, I don't mind the program. I think it's great, and I think the awareness it brings up as a presentation. I think we asked this, or maybe we didn't ask it, but he addressed it. People just think they have to buy this? I mean, we talked about Dominion Energy doing their, protect your lines.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any negative feedback that way? Like, we had a lot of people angry because they thought it was a necessary thing.
I really was surprised that the answer to that is no. I was really surprised at how positive they spoke about the program. I think what they did that would be a really wise thing for us to do too is they really scrutinized that letter that's sent out. So they made sure it didn't look like the city was endorsing this program or encouraging or asking people. So I think we have a lot of say in what that letter looks like, and we should be very careful if we do this program to make sure that letter. So I think that's how they combated that feeling, is being able to okay the language and who's even signing it. They said they used to have mayors sign it, and I don't think they do that anymore. It's just kind of a generic from the city letter. So I think those kinds of things would mitigate that circumstance.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions? Anything? No? Okay. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I move to accept the service line warranty program agreement.
Okay. A second.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved by Councilmember Garn and seconded by Councilmember Page. Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
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 All right. Motion passes 5-0.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I feel like we got the clarification that we did want to pass that on, but
Correct.
well,
That's how it's written.
Yeah.
and I guess that's how it is in here.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's how it
we're
is in the
okay.
packet.
Yeah, that's-
We'll adopt the agreement that we presented to you.
I had a separate question.
Councilmember Barber.
So the Dominion Energy one that went out before, did they go through the same process?
They,
They're their,
Councilmember Hanson.
they're their own entity, so they didn't send it through. It was just to the Dominion bill, not anything to do with the city. That's all I was going to add.
Yeah.
That's correct. And I don't know how Dominion Energy.
They're all on their own.
They're on their own on
Yeah.
that one. Yeah. Yeah. But Councilmember Hanson.
Just a clarification, did I hear that right? We're passing on the savings. Is
Correct.
That, okay.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Okay. Now we are moving on to our work items, and just one more announcement that if you want to speak at public comment period, sign-up sheet is out in the hallway. Okay. So, Schick Farms open space agreement discussion. Andy.
Schick Farms, as you're probably aware, is the subdivision down at the far west end of 200 North. It was originally approved for development probably 10 plus years ago, I think around 2005. On the map here, the black line you can see around the large perimeter, but it's too small. Around the perimeter, it was the original property that was considered in the development. The yellow line is what got built. And then the downturn in the economy happened, and they weren't able to complete the project. Subsequently, the school district came in and bought part of the property. The development agreement expired. The original developer lost the remainder of the property, and it remained with just the yellow portion being developed as originally proposed. The developer initially came in and developed a major portion of the open space in the first phases as a selling point to try to encourage people to come and buy the lots. When the rest of the lots didn't get built, it left the existing residents with a excess of open space. Just to help the situation, about the same time, Utah Power and or whatever they're called now, Rocky Mountain Power, came in and bought most of these lots to run another power line through there. You can see they're deep lots, and the power line runs through the backyard of many of them already. So they bought those lots and took that many additional users away. This has put some burden on the few homeowners that remained there to maintain the total amount of open space. They've approached the city, and actually they've approached us with several options. The one that we've kind of looking at this point, they've offered to give to the city the bulk of that open space that's there in their subdivision at no cost to the city, but with some conditions that the city would improve it with certain park features in the facility. The draft agreement that was sent out with the packet, it is a draft agreement, still under negotiation with the homeowners. The basics of it indicate, wrong button again, sorry. That the north piece, which contains a detention basin, could be improved as a natural landscape area. Dig out the detention basin maybe a couple feet deeper. One of the problems they had there was it's below grade detention basin, and it stays wet almost all year round with groundwater. So we think maybe instead of filling it in, and it's underneath the power line, so its use is limited already, that we take it down another foot or two and have standing water in there and create a natural wetland type facility with trails around the exterior. So that's the thinking on the north side. The south half was developed as a riding arena. Trying to say this politely. When the subdivision was built, there were farms in this area, and the neighbors came and said, "This is where we ride our horses." So a horse feature was included into the development. As it's now grown and filled in, none of the actual owners, or very few of the actual owners of that homeowners association, have horses. So the horse element is not as interested as I thought it would be. They have concerns with that big giant sand pile with the dust and other issues. They would like to convert that into a park-like condition with possibly some features such as tennis or pickleball courts, maybe a basketball area, some of those kind of features. I think what we're looking for tonight is some guidance from the council, as if we're headed in a good direction and that's something you'd like us to continue to pursue, or if this is not something that you're interested in, and we'll discontinue our negotiation and let them contemplate other options for this property.
Okay, thank you. All right, comments at this time or questions about this? So, Councilmember Hanson.
I always, on the one hand, it just seems a lot lately where I'm split. I never want to give up open space. That adds to the community, but this also adds a cost to our Parks and Rec department. And we're we just added another park, but the same type of thing where we were given land from the equestrian estates,
Right. And I think that what in my conversation, so in explaining this is going to be a very passive use in that it's not going to take a lot of upkeep, right? So Cole has talked about how he feels comfortable that they can take this property on without overly stressing his department, who would be maintaining this. So, but that is a good point. It's not just getting it, it's maintaining it over its lifetime. So it's just not it's free, but then you have to take care of it, right? And Cole, our Parks and Rec director, felt that this would fit and he could manage this. Councilmember Barber.
A couple things. I completely agree because that, especially from a city's perspective, I don't love the idea of going in and acquiring property, changing green space agreements. It's not something we want to keep repeating, but we also have to look at everything case by case. You know, what is the situation? How did we get here? And also, what's the opportunity? Like, this is a unique situation. It's already somewhat existing. There's a lot of features already there. It's in a really prominent location, the entrance to our city right off of West Davis Corridor. It's right there, which right now isn't very appealing because they haven't been able to maintain it for reasons that we've looked at. So that's how I'm looking at it, that on principle, I don't love the idea of the city scooping in, but I think if we look at it just like we would have any other opportunity, you know, what does it stand to benefit the community and does it fit within our final plan? I think that's what we have to look at here. And I think there's some great opportunity. My comment to what you were saying is I think there is that. There's the cost to maintain. Right now, already has irrigation and sprinkler system. Who knows the exact state of it because it's not being used. But anyway, we could just maintain it as it is pretty minimally, or we could do some great things and add a lot to the city with it. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. We don't know what we'll do with it.
Councilmember Page.
Yeah, I think this is, I agree with everything being said here, but, you know, I think when we look at this area, we recognize that this is one of the last areas that we have in Kaysville that there's going to be some development because we do have some raw land down there. I think this is going to be one of those deals that 20 years down the road, the city's going to be very grateful that we actually did something with this, even though right now there's not a lot of use. I think down the road there will be. And I actually think it's a pretty good direction that the city is working with on this.
Okay. Councilmember Garn, anything?
Yeah, you know, the other council members have brought up a lot of the, Councilmember Barber brought up the questions I would ask, and I agree with concerns Councilmember Hanson and Page, I think, expressed. So I just wanted to add one thing, though. Are there other areas, you know, because when we talk about setting precedents, are there other HOAs that are teetering, you know, where we might be, then they come next and say, we'd like to convert our HOA land into a city park also?
There may be. Currently, there's not any other HOAs that have approached us about taking over their open space. I know there's a couple of them that are functioning very well. There's probably some that are not quite as good, but maybe don't have the facility or the, you know, they have enough residents to maintain it and at least break even on the deal.
Okay. And I think the reasoning, maybe a comment, the reason, I mean, if you can make a clear distinction, and it's not just a superfluous distinction, of why this would be different, for example, than another HOA where, for example, maybe they just don't want to pay their HOA fees. I think Councilmember Barber already mentioned that, you know, that it's sort of the entry to our city. There isn't really another park in that area exactly. I mean, I guess you have to go up to Barnes Park.
Angel Street.
Oh, Angel
Park.
Street, yes. Oh, right around the corner.
Right
okay,
around the corner.
So around the corner and down Angel.
Mile.
But there's a little further west on 200 North. But I guess you could, you know, make an argument that I think the key question, I guess, and this is a subjective thing, you know, it goes to the Planning Commission and to what we want in our community, but where do we want parks? Do we have enough? Do we need another park? So there's that sort of zero-based question, you know, if we didn't, and I'm not trying to discount at all the fact that maybe this doesn't get taken care of and it's an eyesore and the HOA just does not maintain it, and that could be a reason to develop it as well because you don't want to have your city, you know, degrade in that way. But if we were planning from scratch and thinking about where we wanted parks, that's why I brought up, you know, do we have another park in that area? It's fairly close to the school endeavor.
Case Creek.
Oh, Case Creek, sorry.
Case Creek is the school.
Yes, I knew that. I just, I have Halfheimers, but anyway.
It's all good.
Yeah, I think in general, though, I think I would be in favor also of going forward. But.
Okay. Councilmember Adams.
I think that you need to make sure that it's needs driven, or and some of this will be an echo, but hopefully it stems some new thought. Do we have some kind of a pro forma set out? Do we have some kind of criteria set out? Do we need to, and if we don't, do we need to stop and think about one? Do we need to say, okay, when we're approached by an HOA, because this has happened before, it happened actually just in the neighboring HOA or the same HOA, it happened on Wellington, and we expensed about $150,000 to fill in their detention basin simply because they didn't like the Phragmites, the tules, the rats, and the mosquitoes anymore. And so the city stepped in and did that for an HOA on private land. We're essentially thinking of doing the same thing here. Some of the criteria that comes to my mind would be A, will it provide a viable function for the city, not just a swing set? Will it provide, something that we're in need of, such as maybe a baseball field, a lacrosse field? Will it provide, is there usable space? Is there reasonable access to get to that land? Is there enough reasonable room for parking? Because we're going to have every HOA coming to us saying, well, we're tired of our open space and we want to reduce our fees $30 a month. I get that's kind of rhetorical to some of the concerns here, but I don't think we can just willy-nilly on the fly do this. And the horse property, I don't really see how that's valuable to us. And some of the information I've heard is that Rocky Mountain Power has taken contracts on a lot of those remaining lots, and they've represented them as horse property. So what's going to happen there? Is there a potential for someone to have a lawsuit? I don't know. Is there a potential for some of these owners who say, yeah, well, I bought this as a horse property. I bought it under these, this context. I have a horse. Just because you don't, you can't take it away. So, thinking outside of the box, I'm not so sure that the horse property really provides value. Maybe it does, perhaps. There maybe is room for soccer/lacrosse. And a lot of these sports, they don't need a carved out field to go practice. They just need an open space. So some of that does fit the criteria. The pond, though, I don't see how it fits the criteria. So if we're going to expense money, I think it needs to be in a spot that really benefits the community as a whole. So I think it would be wise for us to take a step back, which I assume we're not voting on this. I assume this is just discussion. It would be wise for us to even take a further step back from discussion and go back and say, okay, well, what are we going to create as a criteria when we're approached with these kind of things? So that we have a baseline instead of just well, yeah, okay, we're going to have compassion on you, we're going to take it. We've done that before, and it cost us a lot of money. And we did away with a detention basin that was engineered and required. And then you get into arguments where developers get really, really upset at the hundreds and thousands of dollars they spend to build these ponds and give the land up for them, and then we do away with them down the road. So I think if we step back, create a policy, some kind of procedure, criteria, how we go about it, so that we can tell the people, well, we did this because your children can, boom, 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 and geographically, like as Councilmember Garn said, it's X amount of miles away from the next nearest park, and our goal is to be Y amount of miles from park to park to park, something like that. So.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Barber?
Yeah, I agree. We have to make sure this fits with what the city needs, and I can speak to a few points, but I think these are also recommendations to staff of what we'd like to see come back as we're just working on this. I don't see a hurry to work on this. So I can speak to our Parks and Rec plan. One of the problems we're having or issues we're having in the city right now is we don't have a lot of open space for organized practices with our recreational sports. There's a lack right now, but there's also a lack of, I wrote it down as organic practicing because I couldn't think of a better term, but people who want to just go play and practice on a field, they're all scheduled right now. There's pretty much a rotating schedule all the time throughout the city. So I think that is a need that it could almost immediately check off if we started watering the grass and taking care of it. That would help our city immediately, our RECs programs, and just the city as a whole. Anybody could go enjoy them. There's already a walking trail of sorts somewhere beneath the weeds over there. It's actually pretty nice, which fits within, I think, our city's plan that we wanted to be more walkable. It will be pretty well accessed from West Davis Corridor, which will have bike lanes and they can come from it. So just speaking to things that are adding to it. And then also I'd like to just see from our Parks and Rec projected budget. I know we didn't have it projected to acquire a new park. That wasn't on the plan, but where would this fit? At what cost would this come? How would we accommodate for it? And the different options, you know, cost to maintain, just keep it how it is, and then also to put in improvements. So that would be nice to see, either next council meeting, whenever that is.
It might be September before we get back to this. Councilmember Hanson.
Yeah, I just agree with all the points that have been said. It is, anytime you set up good, and they kind of call it good internal controls, good processes and procedures, because I think that's what we're going back and forth. Everybody's brought up some good needs, and I think it could fit the criteria, but it's a good criteria that we could have when that next HOA comes. It says, you know, and maybe they will. They'll be like, well, I looked at the criteria and we hit these things, and we might accept those, but it'll just help take, put a more systematic mode to it.
And make it less capricious, and what suits us now might not suit us in 10 years.
Right.
Right. Councilmember Adams.
I mean, some of the core needs of something like this is parking, you know, and yeah, the horse arena has some asphalt laid down already, you know, stuff like that. So when HOA comes and says, hey, you know, we've got these privately maintained roads, it's like, we can't even park cars there. You know, we got to have some grounds to stand on. A couple other quick points of just comment. I don't agree with stipulations being demanded from the HOA placed upon the city. I don't think we should, you know, they should be able to say, well, we'll give it to you if we get this back. You know, maybe a soft stipulation. You know, I could probably work with that, but I don't think I could work with something that was like, well, we want pickleball and tennis. It's like, well, there's $400,000, you know, for post-tension slabs. I don't think we bind ourselves there. And then how did the neighboring folks directly to the east, how did they get out of this HOA successfully? Because that's also an element, right, of why this has not worked out. How were they able to get out of that? I mean, the issues, we're talking about the issues of other HOAs wanting to give up their land too, but you know, now we're even in bigger, stickier things. How are these HOAs disseminating over time and we end up with this?
What I believe you're referring to is that the patio home section apparently does not pay HOA fees to the open space down here.
To their original HOA, right?
They were in the original subdivision. I don't know how that worked. That was on their end of things.
Okay. Interesting. One last point that comes up. So the surrounding property, who owns that? Like the circle, the pathway?
Currently, the property over here, obviously this is the church, but the vacant property to the north and west is currently owned by Perry Homes. We've had some discussion with them as well.
Yeah. I didn't realize how close the property line was to that pavilion, if I'm looking at it right.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. I didn't realize
right
that.
Yeah.
Because it's
what they did.
But the walking trail is part of that. The walking trail extends.
There are improvements that were placed on property that was never platted. So Perry Homes inherited those. In discussion with them, they're willing to leave this open and move the density that could be there into someplace else within their property.
They're hoping to basically land open space bank it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it would go towards their development's open space, but it's still on it. We would have to maintain it, though.
Well, the thought we're having right now is that they would dedicate that as open space, move the density to other places in their project, and likely dedicate that to the city.
Okay.
And then we'd own the entire parcel there and operate it, maintain it as one piece.
And then their HOA would escape any maintenance cost if they form an HOA. That's a peculiar situation there,
If they needed other open space, they would have to have that.
But just for this section.
So this would not get them out of their open space requirements because they would be giving that land to us, right?
That would
it would probably
help meet their open space requirement.
Okay.
They'd be able to count that portion of it. They'd probably would need additional open space.
If they were, I don't recall,
Depending
if they had
on
5 houses platted there and they moved them someplace else, likely they would need open space to make up for that.
Right. Yes, okay.
The point I'm driving at, though, is if they are an HOA and that open space would have been maintained by their HOA, not by Kaysville City, are we foregoing, letting them forego some cost to maintain their own open space that is not under this cloud of issue like the rest of this is? And if so, would we enter into an agreement that says, okay, well, your HOA is responsible for X amount payable to Kaysville City for the maintenance thereof of that open space element? To me, this is a web that just keeps growing.
Other cases where we've acquired or required the open space to be dedicated to the city, we have not asked that HOA to provide maintenance. What they're giving up is the privacy of the property. Technically, if you or me went down and walked around that trail, they could come kick us off. This would open all the open space to the public.
Cool. And that's great, too. Just wanted to cover the concept of
Right.
what.
In our discussions, I think there's another part of this where there was a detention basin. Do you remember that? Anyway, so I'm just wondering at the whole, as we look at the, no, I'm confused. Sorry, it was another piece of property. So sorry. Councilmember Barber.
There was a separate one for
Right.
this, but it's not involved in this.
I understand. It's too complicated. Never mind.
Okay.
I was confused. Move on. All right. Any other things that we want to keep in mind as we go forward? First of all, do we want to continue to at least look at this? Yes, Councilmember Barber.
Just on the contract, the draft contract, I realize this is a draft, and this is what we need to keep working on and refining. I think I would like to see something of it just so we know that that's somewhat workable, so we don't get surprised by it down the road as part of this agreement. And then also, I think we should have a discussion here, I think is great, wherever, about exactly, I saw some terms, improvements to be installed within 5 years of the date of this agreement. We should talk about that. I don't know that I like being, or that that's necessary, that we have the requirement, unless it's, that we just meet the maintenance of it right now. Is that it? That we meet the maintenance, and then, everything else we want to do is put on the city?
The 5-year is at the request of the homeowners. They would like to see some improvements sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I think we came up with 5 years after consulting with Cole,
Okay.
and the responsibilities we have with the Pioneer Park, that 5 years might be something we can take on using impact fees and put something in that horse location where the horse arena is.
Okay.
I think that, I'm not saying that's not from when I was involved in the discussions, that was a sticking point with the HOA, that they would require or ask us to do something. In fact, 5 years was too long. That was way too long for them, and that's as soon as we would feel comfortable saying we could do something there. So that may be a sticking point, it may not be.
Okay, that's good to know.
Just
Councilmember Adams.
in moving forward in the discussion, I back that up and would say that, the only thing that I could personally get on board with is maybe an irrigation system and some seed in that 5-year window of time. Nothing like a $400,000 expense on a construction project. And then the other point I would make is that, without the Perry Homes piece, I see no sense in making this deal really at all. Basically, we're getting 3/4 of a Phragmite pond that's unusable to the people in general. And we're getting severed off. So just imagine that all of that trails were nice at one point. If all of that becomes houses, what's the community going to say then? Is anybody going to want to go hang out there? Are you going to travel from 4 blocks away with your kids to come hang out here when you have a home right on the drip edge of that pavilion? No, you're not. So I think this whole deal really hinges on Perry Homes' side of the deal. If we can encompass all of that, I think that's a great piece to protect. So
Okay. All right. Councilmember Barber.
it's a remnant without it.
You would assume that those agreements are probably somewhat in place. Obviously, they improved upon this area. I don't know. I'd be interested to see what was already there, and I can follow up with the HOA too. They may know more about that.
Okay.
Sorry, not to belabor, but one last point then.
Councilmember Adams.
Could Perry Homes HOA, on the flip side of this whole conversation, step in and help? Just food for thought on the whole issue here. And say, look, we're putting 300 homes in 10 years or whatever, all that church property, when it goes, could they step in and just take care of this together and buoy that HOA back up again and give them the amount of homes they need?
That's been discussed as well as an option.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Andy.
All right. All right. So probably what we're looking for is to bring this back at another study session at a point to be determined later. So we won't move it to action, or we can just direct staff to go and do.
Well,
Councilmember Barber, additional point? Or?
I just wondered if we could do both. Can we say, direct staff, we'd like to look at these items in the meantime before it comes back as a work item, then we can have an educated work item.
Sure.
Next time we come back with more information.
I think that's probably what they would be doing, right? Councilmember Garn.
I think the only point I would make here, because I'm, in this case, definitely not opposed to, it's a preliminary stage anyway, so, but, I think the way I read this narrative, even on the face of it, says, direction to continue to negotiate with the HOA and give direction as to the provisions to be included, which other council members have done well tonight, kind of what they would expect in that. If we're just studying for more information, I'm not sure that's a productive use of time. So if you go back with provisions and actually negotiate and see if, there might be something workable, it just seems to me that would be more productive, which is exactly what, the motion wasn't to move it to an action item and agree to something. It was just to give direction to continue to negotiate.
Yeah.
So it's more productive rather than just belaboring.
Yeah, just the paralysis of analysis. What more data do we need? Until you have an action step, what are you considering, I guess? Until you have a plan and an action step.
Okay. Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, Andy, a technical question. So there's 30 homes right now trying to bear the burden of this space, right? Ish.
A little more than that.
A little more than that? Okay. In the homes that are left over from the cannibalized HOA, does this open space exceed what they need?
Yes, it does.
By how much?
2 or 3 acres.
Okay, so they have a
that includes the patio home area, the open space that was needed for the patio home area is included in that.
So on top of all of that, there is a surplus of 2 to 3 acres?
Yes.
There's a window of opportunity there, perhaps, for them to negotiate with Perry Homes and say, hey, we've got excess land that is above and beyond what our covenants require for us to have. You correct me if I'm wrong, right? Couldn't they allow another developer to come and bank some of that?
Potentially, yes.
And then that HOA could come and say, now this is, and to your point, Councilmember Garnham, I think this is why we're discussing this, whether you think it's unproductive or not. I think there's been a lot of productivity going on here in a lot of direction, and I think we've got a couple parties that are missing here. So as soon as we hear more from Perry and the HOA, I think there are a dozen options that this could go, and one, we could even keep the city right out of this thing. So
that's why we're here tonight.
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you. Would like to entertain a motion. Yes, Councilmember Garden.
Since Councilmember Adams mentioned my name, could I just take a second?
I would prefer you not.
Well, this is not confrontational. I just want to clarify something, but
Okay. I would prefer that we move on. I would entertain a motion to direct staff.
I will move to direct staff to, and I'm open to, Councilmember Adams doesn't like this, or any other council member, to amend my motion.
Time you're speaking out negatively?
No, right. I'm just saying if you help me here, I'd be happy for your help. So anyway, the motion is to continue to negotiate with the HOA and look for other possibilities, and to take the direction of Councilmember Adams and others as to what provisions we're looking at, and then come back to us with a report in the next work session or whenever appropriate.
Second? Anyone?
Second that, Councilmember Garn.
Okay, thank you. All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Garn, seconded by Councilmember Adams. Comments? All right, let's move on to a vote. Councilmember Page.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, now we're looking at,
Comment?
Is there public comment on?
no,
Not on the work item?
No.
That was my other.
right, no.
Can I ask?
Yes.
When we do this again, could we have a public comment part with the work session? Or would it just be the public comment?
Let's talk about that offline.
Okay,
There's
that's fair.
stuff
Actually,
that
that'd
we
be
need to look at with that. Okay, parking passes around Davis High. So we're coming up on the new school year, and parking passes are, last year, were sold to the residents living around Davis High School. Since that time, there has been enforcement of the no parking, and they were able to bring in some funds for that. So the question is, do we continue to have residents have to pay for their parking passes, or do the costs, the monies that we get on parking tickets, does that cover their parking passes? So discussion on that. I have an opinion, as you might know.
Can I
But
just clarify, this
Yes.
is just a discussion? What are we
It's-
looking for at the end of
Okay,
this?
so what we were, this is really an administrative decision, but there's,
It was voted on last year, wasn't it?
so yes, we had some
Oh, yeah.
council
Yeah.
members
So it's not
here
just
who
administrative.
voted on this, and this was
That's what I'm
part
saying.
of that.
Yeah, so it should follow that same pattern.
Right, so do we want to continue
Second
to
design.
charge residents for parking passes, or do we want to have the ticket monies go to pay for the parking passes?
So what you're looking for is
Councilmember Robert.
a motion to move this to an action item? With
I
the
want
yes or
your
no?
feedback as
Okay.
to whether
I'm
or
just trying to
not
make
you
sure I know
think
what you're looking for.
we should charge for parking passes. Councilmember Gard.
Just a process question. It looks like our city manager, Shane Scott, is about ready to possibly answer the question I'm going to ask. But the question is, from a process perspective, if we want to keep the program as is, and that's sort of the consensus, is a motion even necessary?
No.
Okay.
All right. Councilmember Page.
I think the question is, and, is the revenue that they receive from this, does it even cover the police and what it takes to do that? And, according to our chief of police, it doesn't. I mean, it's a negative for them. I mean, even with the income that came in, it's not enough to cover their thing. So I think this is a decision the staff should be making on this and what they feel on this. But I think we have money in our eyes thinking that it's all free, but it's not. I mean, they still have to enforce it, and you're paying their wages and everything else, and so that's something we need to look at.
So
Councilmember Adams.
I could be wrong, but I believe you voted for it. So as a council member who voted to institute the program, like, what do you recommend now? Raising the fee, doing away with it?
Councilmember Page.
When this came on the agenda item, I talked to our chief of police, and that was the question I had. Is there enough money coming in that it justify to have the citizens pay this? And I mean, does he feel that he's receiving enough money to cover his costs to enforce this? And in his opinion, no. So that's what I'm basing mine on.
And the question was to you, though. So in your opinion,
So in my
is your
opinion, I'd probably just keep it the way it is.
Okay.
even though it's a deficit?
No. I wouldn't change it where we just do free ones to the people. That'd be a bigger deficit.
Yeah, we're talking about parking.
But it's
charging for
not covering
parking.
itself now, correct?
Well, what I'm saying
So
is if we went back to the way it was before, it'd be a bigger mess. So, no, I like the program.
Okay. Councilmember Garn.
Yeah, I just, sorry, not to mention that I am an accountant, but just the way I think of this. So what parking enforcement or speed enforcement does pay for itself with a revenue source separate from the general fund? I mean, there isn't one. So I think that the true number, if you're looking at it, is what the enforcement would be in that area if there wasn't a school and there's excess demand there for officers to be there ticketing or looking at parking passes, what would be the extra amount? So obviously there's extra work there, but I'm not sure that, and I'll accept the police chief's, sort of assessment without having hard numbers, but I don't know. But the other comment I'll make briefly is that just because we passed something, I mean, there was a lot of discussion over 6-7 months on this one, and a lot of plans presented, and we finally came up with something, and it's kind of like the Constitution. Nobody liked it when we were done, but it was kind of the best we could do. So, I mean, when you revisit it in a year, this is a good process and say, is it working the way we expected, or do we need to make changes? Do we need to raise the fee? So it's great question to ask, but anyway.
All right. Councilmember Hanson.
Just a point of clarification, because I wasn't part of this decision. What is it? Just a fee to park on the road?
So residents have to purchase parking passes to be able to park on the road.
Not their driveways.
Not their driveways, on the road. But if you have a household with 4 cars, right, and not enough driveway space, then you need to have parking pass to park on the road in school hours.
And then how much is the fee? And I'm sorry to interrupt.
Isn't it, Andy?
We charge $10 per pass
Per year?
per year.
with a limit of 2 passes per household.
And do they have to be in that geographic area?
Yes.
I guess it's
Only
high
within the
schoolers
area
can't.
that's signed no parking during school hours.
So they get an exemption from.
Those black lines indicate the areas that have been designated and signed.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I guess
Of course.
we're appropriate to make comments.
Right. Absolutely.
So I work at Weber State, and I just think, there, when I think of how they handle it, there's just no parking, period, no passes. It does give them an option to put cars on the road. They just have to, find an alternate place farther away for their cars. Yeah.
And I live outside of that zone, but I live 3 blocks away. But the impact of this is we do have kids parking further out, but it isn't the really congested parking that had been in that area. So I think overall the neighbors have been happy, especially when the police come through and make sure that the kids are not parking there without, So the neighbors have been happy. I think the kids are adjusting, and they're parking further out and adding time in so that they can walk the block.
Thank you.
So yeah,
That was my question. Was your what you felt about it, or what you
Right.
What your
I think
so
it's
it'd be to
working.
just keep it the exact same.
All right. I
Just throw it
promised
out
Dean
there.
Wall
Come on.
that I would try.
That you would what?
I would try to, because Dean Wall
we
has
know.
specifically
We know.
asked that residents not have to pay
No.
for their parking passes every year.
And
So
that was one of my questions. I mean, it seems pretty minimal, the revenue that
$10,
we're
right?
getting from the residents, and it seems a little. I mean, it's $10, but it seems just a little annoying if I was a resident
Right.
to have to pay it.
And-
I think a pass is good, and getting 2 passes, great.
And
$10 is
Mayor?
Yes.
I think at the time we just wanted it's a small amount, but it's
Yeah.
enough that they would be invested in the process.
Yeah.
It's because of them that we even did this at all. So we felt like they didn't cause a problem, but they could be better invested in the process. We also worried about selling passes. If you start selling them to kids, that's probably could happen if it's $10, but if it's free, everybody's going to get their 2
Yeah.
passes, and then do they do something else with it?
And they paid for the signs. Is that? And that revenue paid for the signs.
No.
I think I remember hearing
We
that.
paid for the signs too. That didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, the $10 is probably not even covering the cost of printing the passes themselves. That's really what we're trying to do, is cover the cost of community development department putting these passes together. That would be the ultimate goal.
Okay.
All right. So
That was my
I'm hearing not a whole lot of support for getting rid of the fee for the parking passes. We want to hold with what we have. That's what I hear. Councilmember Adams.
Well, I think that would require public input, to be able to have, for me, to have a basis on that. So it's not fair for me to just say, let's leave it, without having one voice to listen to. So
Okay.
completely, yeah.
All
I think it'll
right.
be interesting to see.
Councilmember Barber.
I think it'll be interesting to see. I was trying to look up the numbers. I'm sure other people know them in here, but what's going to happen to Davis High School? What are the student population is going to change quite a bit. Will that affect the parking?
Sure.
That will always be a hot spot to park, no matter how many.
Correct,
students are there, but
good point that with the opening of Farmington High,
Yeah.
the dynamic might shift. So
Yeah.
maybe wait it out another year
Yeah.
and come back in another year and see how it's working. All right, that sounds great. Okay, so
a call to residents to reach out to us.
yeah,
I haven't heard very much, but it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
big down.
All right. So I don't think we need to have a motion. It'll just remain the same. So, we'll just move on. Okay. Potential land lease with rock structures.
If I hope some of you read my email, I mentioned this item in a weekly email, maybe a week and a half ago. As we've gone through the process of leasing the land by the Ops Center, you'll remember that we put it out to an open bid process and had 2 parties that were interested in it. One of those parties is on site now, and the other has decided that this land's not going to work for them. Through that process, however, we've had somebody that's, I think, affiliated with or knows that other party come to us and say they'd like to lease that land. So we have that on the agenda just for discussion tonight. In the meantime, we've also been approached by another party that's interested in leasing some land that we own up on Crestwood near 89 there. I think that's the Openshaw Park area. So we're looking for some direction from the council on leasing land. And I'd like to just maybe put it out there that we believe that this is something that we can do on the staff level and do it fairly. This isn't going to be a big moneymaker for the city, but if you take, for example, the Openshaw Park, it's not really going to hurt the city that much, based on what I know today, to allow somebody to run their horses on there. It probably would help with maintenance a little bit. We don't maintain that property very much. So if you allow the staff to kind of go through those issues, we could either do that and go ahead and contract with somebody. We could also go through that process and then bring an agreement to you on a consent agenda, so you could see what's going on as far as that goes. I prefer not to get too deep into the leasing business. If we take the time to put it out on the website for 90 days and do things like that, it's not going to be worth the return we're going to receive. So as people approach us, if it's not a hard thing to do, if it's a net positive to the city, we'd probably like to do that. And I think the Ops Center was one that was really a heavy maintenance burden for our Parks Department, and having somebody there responsible for that's been very helpful. So we're looking for some direction on that. We'd love to be able to bring this back to you as needed, but we have, again, another party that would like to take that lease over. Do we go out to bid again? And do that, go through that process again, and I think actually Mr. Mills thought that might be the best idea, because we did go out to bid the first time. We might want to do that this time as well. So he may have some comments about that. So looking for some direction on leasing, maybe this specifically, and then leasing in general in our city.
All right, so let's talk first about releasing this one parcel, and how do you feel about should we advertise and open it up to all comers again, or do we want to just take the offer that is on hand? So let's talk about that first. Councilmember Hansen.
Just because of our position as a city, I always think it's beneficial to, even if it's more costly and there might not, to always put it out to bid again. I just think that's wise. You never want anybody coming back, oh, they just got a fair deal, or an unfair deal. Just be above board, because we're not in the leasing business. That's just my thoughts on it.
Okay.
I think it.
Councilmember Adams.
I mean, even the process for these two had some errors in it. So I think it ought to follow the sealed bid process if you want. I mean, because like Councilmember Hansen is saying, people will just come back and say, well, oh, so and so knew so and so. So throw it out. We've already set a precedent, or this council has, and we knew that this was going to come. Somebody talked about this being the next step, that it's going to be open season for people wanting to lease city land now. So if we're going to lease it, put it out, but it's got to be, in my opinion, it's got to be sealed bid. It didn't happen last time either, and sealed bids, and the bidders are invited to be here, and when they're opened up. So.
Okay, thank you.
Just like we do with the construction project.
Councilmember Garn.
Yeah, I actually go almost the opposite direction, and from what city staff is too, that this is relatively immaterial, so we spend a lot of money doing sealed bids and taking more time, and it just barely went out to bid, and there was the very little interest, but the interest that was there. And now we do it all over again. So I wouldn't even go out to bid at all. I'd just say if someone's interested and you got another person, it's a small lease. We're not, as somebody said, we're not in the leasing business. So my opinion, for what it's worth, is you got somebody with some interest, just sign them up on the lease.
Okay, Councilmember Page.
No, that's the approach. Let the administration take care of this kind of stuff. I don't think politics needs to be involved. One suggestion I would have, I personally think that'd be a great thing, and I know in the past up on Crestwood they did lease that, and that ground was a lot nicer than it is today, because the weeds and stuff haven't been mowed, and it's a fire hazard and everything else. One suggestion, though, make the people, whoever leases this thing, make them fix the fences themselves. It's not the city's obligation to be taking care of all that kind of stuff, my opinion.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Adams.
Just clarifying, I'm in my comments in no way, and I'm sure everybody already gets this, it seems like there could be some confusion on that. I am not saying that politics be involved at all. I'm simply saying, staff manage it, that's great, but let's try and follow an open process.
Okay. Councilmember Barber, what are your thoughts?
My initial thought was for this specific one, just follow the same process. I think, just like Nick said, it made the most sense, and then maybe on case-by-case basis, it may make more sense for you guys to just administratively take care of them.
Okay. So this specific one, I hear at least two people saying, go out, let bids come back in. Two
Same
people.
Process.
Are you saying also that you think they should put in bids?
The place that we just recently leased, yeah.
Okay.
Follow the same
All right.
process.
So it sounds like we have 3 council members say, send it back out, let everybody have a chance to bid on it. All right. So, and then, so that's,
No.
hey, yes,
Just
Councilmember Adams.
as you're gathering your consensus, I'm not on board with that. It's got to be
I'm
all or
sorry.
nothing. I'm not going to arbitrarily say, well, let's just follow one more the way we did it before. It's like, no, either we set, again, a criteria and we follow that henceforth, or, I'm with Garn and Page on this one, then fine. Just let them do it. I'm not going to arbitrarily just pick one piece of
Okay.
land and say, yeah, we're going to do it one more time, open, but after that, do what you want. I'm not in on that.
Okay,
So
so.
just as you're gathering, you're
All right, so, so you want to make a decision on what the policy is going to be going forward first, and then apply that to this case. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I mean,
Okay.
this case should really be the only one that we consider going, well, we've already kind of designed it, blah, 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 but yeah, I think it should be all or nothing.
Okay, Councilmember, let's go
Question.
Garn, then Hanson.
Okay, yeah, this is just a question for staff. So is there a policy, so this doesn't fall within purchasing policy, obviously, where you need 3 bids and sealed bids and all that. What is the policy on if you're leasing some city property, particularly when it's de minimis like this is?
Yeah, I think our code's pretty silent on the leasing of property. We have a $5,000 limit where it comes to declaring something surplus, and once something is declared surplus, we have a policy we need to follow at that point. But for something like this,
So I would be correct in making the assertion then that there isn't a requirement that the city have sealed bids to determine who gets the lease.
Right.
Thank you.
But he did say there's a policy
okay.
to that. What is the policy?
Councilmember Adams. I am going to go to Councilmember Hanson, and then if you would like to speak, we'll do that. Councilmember Hanson, you
What's
have
the
a
cost
question.
of putting it out to bid?
It's some time, and we don't usually advertise it in anything where we're probably spending any actual dollars. So it's just I think the return on this. I think the Mr. Puffer's paying $2,000 a year, so it's not a big return. I think we'd probably ask for less on the open shop property. So it's just the law of diminishing returns. Do we go to this effort to advertise on our website? And it's your time too. If you're involved in this process, we're putting it on the agenda and things like that. But I don't know about a dollar cost. It's just probably some time. Leases have to be signed, but we'd do that anyway, I guess. So it's probably not a huge time constraint, but.
Okay. Councilmember Adams.
When there's a policy set, then you don't bring it back to us. In your comments you just made, when we give you a policy, you don't bug us anymore. You follow the policy. So it doesn't mean you're putting it back on our agenda. We won't see these again. We will expect you to follow our policies.
Sure. Unless they hit those thresholds, that's correct.
And in this case, these will likely come back through in any event at the least as consent items. The code indicates that a municipal use of land should be passed by resolution, which is why we passed the last one by resolution as well.
Good point. Then they all should come to us.
The
Code
final
states.
of it, the result of it.
And that's fine. I think that's exactly the question we have is, do you want to do the negotiating? Do you want to have the person come and speak to the council and talk about how much they'll pay? Or do you want us to take care of all that ahead of time and just bring you the final document for your adoption? That's probably essentially what it boils down to for us.
Councilmember Barber.
What was the 90 days? Is that standard? I heard that.
There is no standard. That's probably the part of the problem. I think before we did it for a month and a half, and
I think so too. I just
some
heard
said
90
that
days
wasn't
somewhere.
long
That's too
enough. So
really long.
yeah. So yeah, but if I ask you and then I ask maybe somebody else, I might get 2 different answers.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd say if you just let the staff do it, we would do it, and we may not do it how everybody likes. Or if you have some consensus, we're happy to do it that way too. Sealed bids, for example. If you all want to do it that way, we'll. And in fact, we did it actually that way, in my opinion, because we had people email their answers, what they were going to do with the property, as well as their amounts, to an email address that nobody could check until a certain time. So that's sort of
That's what I thought.
to me.
That seemed to follow the sealed bid.
Yeah, it wasn't a
process.
paper
I
in
don't know what
an
else.
envelope,
Oh.
but to me, it's meeting the same criteria.
That's where we don't set a rate. We just allow.
The difference is there's no room for
Councilmember
shenanigans
Adams.
when you have a sealed envelope in this
Yeah.
room right here.
That's it.
Otherwise, an email could be like, hey, come up 200 more and you got the land. Like how the whole purpose of this is how do we avoid that? That's all. I don't care who does it.
Okay.
let's figure out how we avoid that.
All right. So I think what I'm hearing is that the council in general feels like, yes, go ahead, get bids, probably sealed bid. We don't have any consensus yet on whether we do paper sealed bids or something like that. Do you want to have that discussion right now too? Yes, let's. Okay, let's. Yes,
Sorry,
Councilmember
just point of
Garn.
Order. Maybe I missed it, but I wasn't sure that there was and this is not a huge item. I mean, like you said, but I didn't sense that there was consensus that we should do.
I count 3.
Oh, okay.
So I count Hanson, Barber.
Oh, that's right.
Adams.
All right.
In their comments.
Thank you.
Indicated that they feel that it should go out to bid again. Is that valid? I could be wrong. We could go around and, do you want to clarify? Councilmember Hanson, how do you feel?
Bid.
Councilmember Page?
No, decision.
Okay. Councilmember?
Decision.
You mean decision?
Allow-
Like they just let us
Staff.
know what their decision is. Seems like where we have no other policy, I'd still like to see a bid process followed. It seemed like it worked well last time, and it wasn't a huge burden on staff. So I would say with that.
And Councilmember Adams?
I'm policy. I thought we created one.
Yeah, and I believe,
I'm utterly confused here. Why
and
this is
I
happening.
believe that the recommendation from our city attorney is to go out to bid. So
But not just on this one. I'm not isolating this.
I
I'm
understand.
saying this is the new
This should
policy.
be the policy.
This is criteria.
Not just this piece. Yeah.
okay,
You know, just like the HOA thing. No shooting from the hip.
okay. Is that clear?
Yep.
Got that?
That's good.
All right. All right. Now, do we need to have a vote to make that?
I don't think so, because we'll just go follow that direction, and then we'll bring it back to you and tell you, answer any questions you have about the process we followed, and
Is that,
Hopefully
okay.
you like it.
Is that Councilmember Adams?
Well, I think, yeah. Well, okay, so to his question, I had a comment, but to his question, yeah, I mean, the process has somehow got to be authentic and vettable, as though nobody, said, oh, just bump it up another 100 or 2. Because in a sealed bid, what you really want is you want integrity in that environment. The worst thing that could happen is in a year from now, someone realizes, oh, yeah, I got told that you bid this. And da-da-da.
if we need,
So if you can seal those somehow, that's great.
That's how they did it.
if
though.
we need to have Ryan come in here
email's
and
not sealed,
authenticate
so
the
someone
email
needs to see.
process, we can
Okay.
certainly do that.
Excuse me, sorry.
Don't think so.
Side conversations. We are listening to our city manager. Go ahead.
Can you? Yeah. Last time I thought we explained it, like the process of the email, that no one else had access to it. It wasn't even open.
I think what Councilmember Adams is saying, though, is that he
doesn't
doesn't feel
trust
trust that the email process is secure enough.
Okay.
I'm not saying I don't trust it.
Councilmember
I'm saying
Adams.
it's room for error. That's it.
Okay.
That's
Well,
all.
if you guys all want to talk about the best way to do a sealed process, that's fine. I think the staff can take it from here, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. Okay, I think we should have a motion to encapsulate that. Councilmember Page? You were coming forward.
Encapsulate it.
Yes, go for
Wow.
it.
Been all over the deal. Well, I'm actually confused what you want to do.
Yeah, okay,
Because there's only one agenda item, which is the potential land with rock structures.
okay.
I'll
So,
make the motion. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Councilmember Hanson, did you have a question?
Yeah,
Okay, question first.
just, do we want to make this a policy going forward? We have to see it anyways, but, I mean, you just need better policy direction, not to wait 90 days, but is a 30-day posting on the website good enough for leasing de minimis land, something like that? I'd just be happy to leave it with you and just get reports on this. We put it out to bid. It was electronically secure. We also want the best possible use of our city funds. That's the other thing we have to remember. You're right, it might be de minimis, I agree, but if somebody would offer us $3,000 for the land, as city stewards, we need to do that too. But let's make the process simple, so it should just be a report at the end of.
Okay. Thank you. I don't feel comfortable creating policy tonight.
This is a work item too. So
Yes,
it's fine.
and so I don't feel comfortable creating a policy tonight, but I do feel like we need to make a decision on this rock structures so that they can move forward. Would it be acceptable if we made a decision on this right now with if we also included further discussion about policy going forward in September, if we could discuss it? Because I think it is a good point, but I don't think that I want to wait to have a really good debate on what the policy is going to be and make these guys wait, and whoever else might want to bid on this as well. Would that be all right, just in general? Councilmember Adams?
I think then a temporary procedure could be followed until that time, and just as simple as putting it on the website. There's a lot of controversy whether anyone, you can deny it if you want. There's a lot of controversy last time this happened, and why this even happened last time. I mean, that's a long road. So let's honor that. Let's honor all that stress that the community went through. Let's honor why we even opened this land up for lease anyway. It came under, serious scrutiny. And let's honor something here. Let's say, okay, let's put it out on the website for 21 days and just say, hey, there's this. Shane, you did say there is a policy to follow. We still haven't heard it, of 5,000 or less, right? And this will probably be in that
The
realm.
policy is actually for 5,000 or more. So for 5,000 less, there is no policy.
Okay, well,
All right.
do
All right.
what you need.
Councilmember Garn.
Thank you. Again, I think we might be getting a little bit in the thick of thin things. We can do a policy and go through what the threshold should be and all that later. So I would just make a motion to instruct staff to proceed with the open process and lease opportunity as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Garn, seconded by Councilmember Page. Any comments?
Does that mean just close the deal then?
No, it says what his motion was to have an open process, let people bid on it.
Follow the same process that we had
Right.
before.
Right. Okay, is understood.
Just for this one. And then
Glad to see you.
Councilmember Hanson.
are we adding to that to push this forward? Is that part of your motion too, just for clarification, to push
That we
the
will-
process in the future?
We will
That
relook at the
we'll come back
process.
to it.
Yeah, I think that could certainly be added to, a future agenda, but I think it would be fine to visit leasing of land as a policy. Yeah, I don't have any objection to a policy, so yeah, that would be fine. I will include that as part of my motion as well.
Okay, is that okay with the second?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so moved, seconded, comments, anything else? Councilmember Berber. Okay, let's vote. And we are with Councilmember Garn.
Aye.
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 All right, motion is unanimous. Thank you. All right. Good? Awesome. All right, now we are going to go to public comment. And the first person we have signed up is Linda Gardner.
For almost the last, excuse me, it's been long and boring and tiring. Anyway, for the last almost 2 years out in West Kaysville, we've been very excited about having a 4-lane road. We went through that much time going through all the problems of going through all the hoops. Yesterday I drive onto 200 North off of Angel. There's a bike lane with double white lines. We still have 2 lanes, not 4, because you've taken a whole lane for bikers. Why did we spend that time and that money to build that road, to put in a beautiful lights? We don't need them. We didn't need to go through this process to come up with 2 lanes, plus the big wide lane down the middle that they don't even have turn lanes on them. It's a waste of our time and our money that you guys, I don't know who did that? How many of you voted for that bike lane? That bike lane, the whole lane. Not just a little bike lane, but the whole car lane. Who voted? I want to know.
We don't do that. Sorry. This is your time. Nope.
We do.
Nope.
I bet
This
he
is your
didn't
time.
vote for it. I know who did.
This is your 3 minutes.
We never even really heard
Okay.
of it.
This is her 3 minutes. Shh.
So I want to know, what are you planning to do to please us out there in West Kaysville who put in the time and effort to see this 4-lane road back to 2 lanes as it was 2 years ago? Where did that money go? For the bikers, the few bikers that bike out there? They're not riding their bikes to work. They're social people. They're people that are doing biking. They're not a part of the community and paying the taxes. Where are they going to pay their taxes to use our road? Do you have that figured out? Can I get some answers? Come on.
This is not a time for us to talk to you. It's a time for you to talk to us. After this, I would be glad to talk to you. So you have 15 seconds.
I'm just really sick and tired of the way you guys worked tonight. You were horrible. There's only 2 men on this whole committee who had anything proper and good to say. The rest of you suck, and I won't vote for you again.
All right. Thank you. Randy Van Bozy.
I just had, I guess, a concern with the Schick Farms open space agreement discussion, and it's really my novice speaking, but it was mentioned that the ground there is perpetually wet, that it's never dry, and then in the discussion we talked about how there won't be any changes to the land for a while on that, and my concern is the city taking on the liability of having a property that is in a significant flood zone and butts up very close to homes. Right now we've got a lot of issues in the city with homes that have had their backyards flooded, and we're working through that as a city, and I want to make sure that we're not moving forward with this project and creating another liability for the city without actually looking at the flood risks and what our investment will be to keep that from becoming a liability.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Gardner.
Would it surprise anybody that I'm her husband? Thanks for the opportunity of being here and expressing my concern on the lanes on 200 North. My approach to this, however, is maybe a little different, because from the day the concept of changing the road from the overpass of the railroad tracks out to Angel was 4 lanes. That's what emanated from here. The mistake I made in hindsight is I didn't write down the names of the people and the time, etc., when those conversations came about and when I got the information that I thought that's what was going to happen. I didn't think we had a problem. I was excited about the 4 lanes. You go to that intersection there at 200 North and Angel right now, and you see the way it's marked off. The traffic is divided. Certainly glad it's not a roundabout at this point. And I'm excited for the lights to be turned on and see the ease of turning from any of the directions, going or coming. I think that's a vast improvement. The disappointment does, however, begin where we now have, coming over the railroad, 4 lanes, and they merge into turning lanes going west or going east. And you get to Flint, and then you keep going west. And suddenly you have this humongous center area painted off, which was eliminated as you went over the tracks, just the reverse, so that there could be 4 lanes and 2 in each direction. So now you have this big center lane again. So now if you're coming from Angel on the south side of that intersection and turning right or east to go down 200, Now you go into a smaller lane than it was there to begin with. And then to the right of you, you have the double lane that she was talking about, the unusually wide-spaced separation between the traffic lane and then the bike lane. Okay? Now you continue east and you come to the two intersections that you want, if you want to turn left and go into that subdivision. One of them is Seymour, and I can't remember right now the other one. No turn lanes off of that even. You have it all painted off as a center lane that you don't go into. There's no turn lanes there. So you will be slowing down, putting on your signal, putting on your brakes to turn into one of those two things and watch the cars behind you gather and slow down and stop and wait until you can clear.
Thank you for your
my
comments.
time is up. I am sorry, Mayor.
That's okay.
I really
appreciate
am.
it.
And I'm going to keep talking for a second. Because if you keep
I'm
doing
sorry.
it, slam it again. We've heard it a lot. And I'd
Right.
like to have slammed it a few times tonight, too.
Okay.
But all I'm telling
I
you
have to
is
be fair to
nobody
everyone.
has
If I
ever
let you
gone through
continue to
that.
talk, then I have to let everybody continue to talk, so I'm very strict about the 3 minutes.
I appreciate it. I will sit down.
And I will talk to you
I will
afterwards.
sit
I would be
down.
glad to. Thank
and
you.
as I sit down, I'm going to make an awful disgusting comment.
Okay, that is fine. That is your right.
Slammer and a slammer tonight doing other conversations.
All right. Let's go with council member reports. Anything from community development?
No, actually, what I was going to say, we actually covered in our earlier meeting, so I think we're okay.
Okay. Anything from power? No. How about youth court? No. Okay. Youth City Council. When do they meet?
They meet the first Thursday of every month.
Okay.
At the police station.
All right.
And the summer's been a little tricky, but once school starts, we'll be up and going again. We have a full council, the new mayor this year, and a full council. And they've already volunteered all during the summer, so they're great. And then Parks and Recreation, just a huge thank you and shout out for all who helped on our 4th of July celebrations.
That's great. Public Works?
Yeah, I'm going to modify just a little bit, but I'll keep this very informational. No opinions based on the commenters tonight on 200 North. And first, just a brief history. So when, because I felt the same way you did when I heard that we went, maybe not angry, but I asked the question,
Point of order, are we entertaining, rebutting the citizens?
No, I'm just saying that I wasn't angry about it, but I asked for information. And when I went to find out, we had, I had expected there would be 2 lanes, 4 lanes, sorry, but that, whether there's 4 lanes, 2 lanes, that's not something, just so you know, that the council ever voted on, even at the beginning. It was just sort of an understanding. So I just want to make that clear. Then the other thing that is important is, as far as the striping, the information I received back from the city is typically you go to 4 lanes, and I'll answer the other question too. You go to 4 lanes when you have about, well, back up in history a little bit, sorry again. So we, at one point we were looking at putting the bike lanes off the road completely, except there were some, the city was looking at that, not a council action, but there were some right-of-way issues on some of the property owners there, and that couldn't go in, unfortunately, to connect up the trail. And so then it was going to be 4 lanes, but when you do the traffic count on that section of the road between, the end of the road where the West Highway will be, and then up to Flint Street, where it's still 2 lanes, typically you do like 15,000 cars, and I'm going to get this wrong, maybe Andy can correct me. I don't know if that's 15,000 cars a day or
Per day, yes.
per day. And it was 12,000, so it didn't meet the standard. So my next question was, well, if it doesn't meet it now, are we locked in if we go 2 lanes now, or can we go to 4 lanes when it meets the standard? So the answer is we can definitely go to 4 lanes, and that was one of the things I was going to bring up even before your comment, is that that doesn't prescribe us from going to 4 lanes later when the number counts warrant that, and so we can still do 4 lanes. And I think ultimately, as much, because I'll say this too, my wife and I are bikers, even though we're in our 60s now, but we like to do that, and we do pay taxes in Kaysville too. But when we, but when that goes to 4 lanes, I'll miss that. But I really think that it needs to go to 4 lanes eventually, because it's going to be a major connector between the new highway and the freeway. So I hope that helps a little bit in answering your questions.
How do the bikers
Okay. This is a good discussion that we need to have after
You allowed
this.
him to do all that after telling them you two would sidebar
That was
after
actually,
them, and you allowed
that was
right.
actually in my original
the double
report.
standards
Okay.
never fell.
All right.
I just want to know how the bikers are going to handle it when it becomes 4 lanes. Why can't it be that way now?
Okay.
Saving time and money on recycling and all of the...
And Mayor,
Okay.
I'll turn that back over to you. I do have
Right.
a little bit more to my report.
Do you know what? I think we've,
Well, there are other issues,
Yeah.
but it's okay if you don't want to hear the rest of the report.
could you
that's
send
fine,
us an
too.
email? That would be great. Just
Oh, with council reports?
Yeah, please, just to finish it off. Okay.
Okay.
So calendar items, just so that you know, swearing in for Stroh will be tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. if you would like to attend. I don't think I want everybody to remember that we do have Truth in Taxation coming up on August 16th. I believe that's the date. And so have that on your calendars as well.
I forgot one thing.
Councilmember Barber, yes?
The 24th of July breakfast coming up
Thank
on
you.
Tuesday.
Yes. So that will, 24th of July, Bowman's pancake breakfast. Thank you for reminding me. Any other calendar items? No. Okay. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to take a 15-minute break. We have to adjourn as City Council and then reconvene as RDA. All right. So let's take a 15-minute break for now.